So how do we live up to it as Greens? Does GPUS live up to decentralized democracy? I've been saying since we decided to do this one that my job here is to not be too harsh on this topic. But while decentralization requires, as we said earlier, requires a high level of communication and collaboration, GPUS's version of decentralization has tended to be more chaos and disconnect. Communication lines are not great. And because, another thing I think that needs to be addressed is that because we're an all volunteer organization for the most part, it means that we're relying on people that have a lot of other things on their plate, a lot of other things, that they have responsibilities for. So that all volunteer organization means that we need to have more backups, right? We need to have more people involved in the organizing so that things don't get dropped. In GPUS, the focus on localism and isolation and a lack of a clear and effective communications pipelines has led to a lack of focus and ability to do coordinated actions, right? And this has been something that the Green Party's kind of been going through right now internally, is like, we want to do this thing, but how and can we? Right? What is the value of it? I think most Greens that operate within the National Party have this kind of question in their mind of what is the value of a national committee proposal and declaration, right? If it doesn't come with mandates for states, if it doesn't come with action steps that are clear and able to be taken, if it's not clearly communicated back to the member parties that are actually the power of the Confederation, what does that mean, right? And so that's an area where the Green Party's kind of fallen into kind of dysfunctional decentralization. Decentralization, like we talked about earlier, in the Green Party, it's often been used to shield bad actors from accountability, and GPUS lacks effective conflict resolution processes for either individual people or their member parties' caucuses. So this means that often conflict is just left unresolved. Bad actors are allowed to just stay, which means that the people that they were, going after or that they were causing problems for often leave. So basically, we often lose the good organizers at the expense of bad actors because we don't have proper processes in place to address it. And then, despite green values calling for grassroots direct democracy, and kind of anti-bureaucracy language that we read at the beginning from our 10 key values, GPUS is often extremely bureaucratic in function, and rank and file Greens are often completely disconnected from what's happening at the National Party, which frankly is good most of the time. But if the National Party were, functioning more effectively and efficiently, we would want that kind of, connection.
Yeah, I think kind of the theme here that's interesting, that I know I've experienced, and I think Chris did too, as being involved in the national committee and national stuff, is that while there's a lot of talk about being decentralized and what would you call it, like I suppose a will to be decentralized, what's kind of ironically occurred is that the focus on keeping the National Party decentralized and focused on member states is that we've lost focus on the fact that not all of the member states properly practice decentralized democracy themselves, and not all of the committees at the national level practice decentralized democracy. That they'll sometimes have a couple of co-chairs and a couple of members kind of make all the decisions, and they're not necessarily as deliberative and participatory and all that we talked about as they should be. Yeah. And so as a result of that, all of these different committees and even some state parties end up very isolated from each other and very siloed from each other. And so we don't have very good collaboration and communication across them. And our rank and file members, our local parties that often do a lot of really good work, a lot of good organizing work and activism work, and run local candidates and win local offices very regularly, that ends up very disconnected from the network of state parties and the national party. So I think some of our challenge here is that we have the right set of values and the right ideas, but not entirely the right implementation here of how the national party and how the state parties are supposed to interoperate and work together and hold each other accountable. Because part of the problem here is that if there's a problem in the national party is not empowered to really do anything because it's assumed that the state party will hold folks accountable. But again, if that state party is not necessarily living up to all of the decentralized values that we've talked about, then it's very hard to hold folks accountable, or at least it's a drawn out bureaucratic process with all of its problems, right? So these are the points I think we can look at to improve and better live up to those key values.
Yeah, it's almost built in. When GPUS was formed as a confederation of member states, GPUS was established to be the bureaucratic administrative body that acted as the conduit for collaboration for those things, right? So despite the 10 key values taking an anti-bureaucratic stance, GPUS was established as basically a solely bureaucratic body. And the problem, one of the key problems that I see is that there's not a lot of ways for states, which are the members, right, of GPUS, to actually exert power and affect change, right, or even talk to each other through communication, right? GPUS has kind of become a black hole for communication and power, instead of a conduit that leads from one state to the other, right? When you